For more than 8 years, one man has run a global empire from a luxury apartment in the heart of the Philippines.
Everything Roux loved about the world. Lawlessness, drugs, money.
Making hundreds of millions of dollars, dealing in drugs, guns and death all across Southeast Asia.
I mean, we only need, let's say, the first deal, $500,000 of goods.
After thriving for so long in the shadows, the big boss begins to think he can act with impunity.
Because that stuff, you can flip it for 50,000 kilos, no problem.
What Roux doesn't know is that his most trusted accomplice has turned against him and begun secretly recording their conversations.
We had Jack. He didn't know we had Jack. That was all the difference.
It's like gold dust. Yeah, it's like gold dust.
Paul Roux has transformed himself from a computer encryption wizard into a brutal criminal mastermind with a global empire run from the safety of his penthouse in Manila. It starts with an online prescription scam that makes him hundreds of millions of dollars. He uses this wealth to hire an army of mercenary soldiers. He begins to buy and sell astonishing quantities of weapons designed for the battlefield.
He aspired to be like the Jeff Bezos of the arms and the underworld. So he combined the dark world of crime with the new world of technology and the sophistication of science. So he has brought crime to the new frontier.
He even starts doing business with nation states, threatening world peace, killing anyone who crosses him. As a young man, Paul Roux pioneered an ingenious piece of computer software called Encryption for the Masses, or E4M. E4M and its successor programs allow users to scramble their communications, locking out any outside observers. It became a favorite tool for terrorists and criminals.
That doesn't make sense.
The big boss has used his phenomenal coding skills to cloak all his criminal schemes from outside scrutiny.
He felt completely safe. His computer system was completely encrypted by him. There would have been no email, wiretaps, or anything like that. You couldn't have broken into it.
But now, one of the world's most aggressive law and order agencies is on Paul Roux's trail. The DEA exists to bring global criminals like Paul Roux to book. The DEA Special Operations Directive is its elite unit. They've taken down notorious international figures, like Iranian terrorist financier Monzer Al-Khazar and Russian arms dealer Victor Bout.
We don't want to go after who everybody else gets. We want the guys that nobody else can get, and we want to attack them where they don't see it coming.
Tommy Cindric worked his way up from a Washington, D.C. street cop to become one of the DEA's most effective agents.
I'd just been in the groups for a few months, and we were talking about how do we find targets? Who's our target? Who's the next target? We had this discussion about who are the big bad guys on the international scene.
At first, the DEA's Special Investigative Unit knew nothing about Roux's operations in Asia. It was only when a UN report on security in Somalia highlighted the big boss's activities in guns and drugs there that they decided to dig a little deeper.
We were focused on it from Somalia. We didn't know about the other things he really had going at that point. This was probably, the first month in the investigation. That's where you start. You start at ground zero. It's just building the information. And we learned some things, but nothing that really stuck to us. Like nothing where you go, okay, this is the way in, this is how we're going to do it.
8,500 miles away in Manila, Zoldy Rivera, a lead investigator with the Philippines National Bureau of Investigation, is also struggling to make progress. He has been investigating a vicious murder, which has all the hallmarks of a professional contract killing. Kathy Lee, a 43-year-old real estate agent, had been shot in the face and her body dumped at the side of a road outside Manila. She had last been seen in a van with 2 foreign clients.
The investigation started on February 13, 2012, the day Kathy Lee was found dead, and it lasted for about 3 months. I have no headway. I hit a brick wall on the investigation. At the time, we were on the impression that there has to be a mastermind for Catherine Lee to be assassinated that way by these guys. Because as you see, there is no robbery, there's no sexual assault. What could have been the motive for anyone to kill that woman?
Zaldi was unable to find any trace of who had ordered Kathy's murder. The police in the Philippines had only picked up street whispers about a foreign mastermind who locals called the Fat Man.
At the time, there was no warrant of arrest. There was no illegal activity being monitored by the Philippine government at the time. So he was free to conduct his business.
Roux had become so rich and powerful that he now felt that he could do whatever he wanted, no matter how depraved.
Another reason that he wanted to be in the Philippines was he really liked women, and he liked Asian women. He liked to hire prostitutes. He had a series of girlfriends, and he had one particular girlfriend, Cindy Kayanan, who is the accountant in his business, RX Limited, and she's stunning. She's gorgeous. But he also, in his various safe houses, his various kind of brought in prostitutes, and he wanted kinky stuff, I'm told.
Of course, I don't like these kinds of men. You know, they prey on vulnerable women, they exploit women because these women need the money. So they are in a position of power and they really use this to the hilt. I don't like these kinds of men.
And there's one famous story where he beat a girl up with a baseball bat, almost killed her.
This revelation about Roux really again shocked me when Roux apparently had a date with a lady whom he roughed up. And this lady happened to be the daughter of a senator of the Republic of the Philippines. And the senator complained.
Her father came enraged, and so he just paid him off, and the problem went away.
Roux paid him off, if I'm not mistaken, maybe anywhere from at least $1 million. And then the senator backed off. I mean, who would do this if your daughter were beaten by this criminal? But it means that you can pay off anyone at the expense of even your family's dignity.
By now, the big boss is sure he can buy his way out of any situation. And using his gang of former mercenaries, he also knows that he can have anyone who displeases him erased. After killing his first head of security, Dave Smith, Roux has hired former US Army sniper Joseph Hunter. Though it was Roux's orders that ended Kathy Lee's life, it was Joseph Hunter who organized her murder, and this killing would threaten the whole world of the big boss.
The murders that followed, all are what started garnering attention. If you're a drug dealer, nobody really cares, okay? If you're not killing anybody, you're pretty much okay. But you start dropping bodies, people give it. People give it. Whether it's us, whether it's the Philippines, somebody's going to start giving it.
Roux now knew he could depend on men like Hunter to do his bidding.
Roux was a very seductive figure. He somehow figured out when he was talking to a person, particularly a man, in particularly a certain kind of man, what would excite and mesmerize that man.
He truly gives confidence and gives the appearance of a leader. An evil leader, but a leader.
But the big boss was about to find out that he was no longer invulnerable. Working with law enforcement agencies across Asia, the US DEA have started to track the global scale of Paul Roux's criminal activities. They already know that the big boss has been laundering his illicit cash into gold bars and then using hired muscle to hide the gold in safe houses in Hong Kong.
He liked gold, he loved gold. He accumulated it in Hong Kong, among other places. He had a stash of it in a safe house in Hong Kong, $40–50 million, something like that worth.
The Hong Kong police discover the money laundering operation and seize millions of dollars in gold bars. They also find tons of fertilizer explosives, of a type often used by terrorists across Southeast Asia, hidden in a warehouse. And it's all linked to Paul Roux.
It was seized by the Hong Kong police because they were tipped off by the DEA guys.
The pressure on the big boss begins to build. Then DEA Special Agent Tommy Sindrick makes an even more significant breakthrough. He contacts a key figure from inside Roux's world. Codenamed Jack, this former soldier from Europe has earned Roux's trust by establishing a base for him in one of the world's most dangerous countries, Somalia in East Africa.
Most of LaRue's guys were blockheads who needed to be given orders and told directly what to do. And if anything went awry of what they were planning for, you might have a problem because they couldn't think outside the box to solve it. That was the uniqueness that Jack brought. Jack was somebody you could put on the ground to get things done and who would efficiently get things done.
But Paul LaRue begins to become suspicious, even paranoid about those around him. He has already killed Dave Smith for stealing from him. Now the big boss begins to suspect that other key members of his team may also be on the take. LaRue decides, without any justification, that Jack has been stealing and orders Joseph Hunter to assassinate his golden boy.
He understood with LaRue's reach, with the people that he was allied with, meaning mercenaries from any part of the world, anything could be obtainable for him, for LaRue, and that he was at threat because of that.
Crucially, Jack can offer documentary evidence of his relationship with LaRue. He even gives the DEA direct access to his secret communications with his boss, ripping away the thick cloak of encryption, which until now has made LaRue virtually invisible.
One of the things he said is, "I saved everything." And we were like, "You saved everything?" And he goes, "I have it all on my computer. I'm going to give it to you all." We just hit the treasure trove. This is huge.
Jack begins to work with Tommy and the DEA to develop a tempting scenario to lure the ultra-cautious big boss out of his lair and into their hands.
We wanted him to infiltrate the organization and then see what LaRue was asking him to do. We were worried about him. We cared about him. We wanted him to succeed because if he succeeded, we succeeded. But we also didn't want him to get hurt. I had been doing the job a long time. We had never gotten anybody killed or hurt. We didn't want to start. And we knew this one had dire consequences if Jack were discovered.
Jack tells the DEA that the big boss has contacted him to say he'd been wrong to suspect his golden boy of stealing. He's even apologized for putting a contract on Jack's life. So the DEA asked Jack to go back to work for LaRue as part of an ambitious plan designed to bring the big boss to justice.
He told us what intrigued LaRue. And as he told us what intrigued LaRue, and then we started getting a sense of LaRue from his emails and phone calls with Jack. So our idea was to create something that LaRue would be intrigued by. And that's where the theater came in.
The DEA has perfected the art of constructing elaborate pieces of play-acting theatre, daring sting operations, using undercover agents to trick their targets into lowering their guard. The first stage of this sting involves Jack exploiting LaRue's ambitions to expand his lucrative trade in methamphetamine. Meth is the most popular and devastating illegal drug in the Philippines, where it's known as shabu.
Many of the drug users here take shabu or methamphetamine, which is called the poor man's cocaine. You know, drivers, bus drivers who need to drive long hours, they have to be kept awake. They take these drugs, and it also takes poor people out of their depressing state. It's an escape.
The scourge of shabu has fueled a terrible cycle of addiction and death in the Philippines for years. Yet LaRue is now planning to import hundreds of tons of pure methamphetamine into the country. The next part of the sting has Jack tell LaRue he has made contact with a major Colombian drug trafficker, offering the big boss an irresistible new transnational hookup.
We then said we wanted chemicals. And he said, "What kind of chemicals?" He thinks he's talking to Jack. And Jack was working with the Colombians. So he thought Jack was working with the Colombians, and they were looking to bypass the Mexicans in the United States and start creating their own meth. So we got the recipe for meth. And we added some other chemicals, but we basically sent the recipe for meth plus a few other chemicals. And LaRue immediately goes, "I know what they want. They want meth." And I took a huge sigh of relief because we were like, got him. Because if he's willing to say meth in an email, that means he's going to deal openly. Because evidence requires knowledge. You have to have him knowing what he's doing it for, and how he's doing it.
The DEA and their new double agent Jack may have grabbed LaRue's interest, but they don't underestimate the challenges that lie ahead.
He's different. He's unique. I think the interesting thing about him is his commanding presence, his ability to really be a leader and for people to follow him. He gives people confidence that anything can be done. He looks like a out-of-shape rugby player, okay? He's got big bones, he's got a big head, he's strong, but he's got such a commanding presence.
The DEA need to trick LaRue into leaving Manila, where his network of corrupt officials ensure he will never be arrested. Jack sends a message that the Colombian drug trafficker is willing to talk business, but only if the big boss agrees to meet face-to-face in a third country, Liberia in West Africa. That's because the DEA knows someone there they can trust.
Paul Roux was a man who was known to be very ruthless, and he really wanted to expand and push his business ventures.
Fomba Sirleaf, son of a former president of Liberia and head of his country's national security agency, has worked closely with the DEA in the past and shares their determination to stop narco-traffickers in their tracks.
Paul Roux came on our radar because we had done many cases with the USDA. They approached me on him and some of the stuff that he wanted to do in Liberia. And really what he wanted to do was to set up a base of operation, maybe to create either a storage area or a factory for the processing of some of his narcotics.
In a desperately poor country, still recovering from a vicious civil war, a rich foreign criminal can play havoc.
What he was typically looking to invest millions of dollars, even if it was 5 or 10 million in Liberia, that's a lot of money. Any way you slice it, it's a lot of money. And if he got headway in and started getting his tentacles into to corrupt people within our society, it'd been very difficult to dislodge him. So definitely you had to stop him head on.
The DEA's sting still has to convince LaRue that the potential profits from meeting an international drug trafficker are so high that it is worth the risk of traveling to Liberia.
We want the realism. We want the theater to be as real as possible in order to bring him in. And we knew to get him in, he had to believe everything was real.
Hey, greetings. How are you?
When the two men meet in a Liberian hotel, Jack begins to secretly record his conversation with LaRue. If at any point the big boss realizes he's being betrayed, Jack will die.
Yeah, okay.
But the thing is, they weren't fucking expected to.
Jack goes in and he has the meeting where LaRue is asking the questions about the Colombians. He's laying out the knowledge of the meth, the knowledge of the cocaine, which is all very important for evidence. LaRue, even though the email we knew was LaRue's, even though nobody had access to the emails, there's nothing like having the guy say it himself to go with the documentary evidence. Our case just kept getting stronger.
Let's wait for the prices. Okay, the prices should be around 50,000 each. Dollars. But let's wait for the prices.
Okay, fine. Good. The delivery asked as well.
Convinced he is talking with his trusted golden boy, the big boss lets his guard down and begins to speak with terrifying candor about his many international drug and gun smuggling schemes.
Anywhere in South China Sea, like Thailand, anywhere on that side, Vietnam, but not in the actual country's waters itself. International waters. No problem.
Good.
The meeting goes extremely well. Jack does a great job directing the conversation. LaRue talks about how he's not scared to kill people, admits to killing people in the meeting. Goes fantastic. Can't ask for anything more.
Good. All right. All good. I'll see you in probably half an hour or something. Yeah. Okay.
The meeting's concluded. They agree they're going to meet again later. LaRue comes back to the room. LaRue's back in the room, and it's go time.
So he's inside the hotel now?
Yes.
Paul LaRue has walked into a trap. He has been lured to Liberia in West Africa, convinced he is about to make a new connection with a Colombian drug lord, facilitated by his golden boy, Jack. He doesn't know that Jack is now working with the DEA and their friends in Liberia to bring the big boss down.
Well, the intention for him was not only to come to Liberia, but then to talk about his plans. What was it that he wanted to do in Liberia? How was it he was going to set it up? How did he want to make this his base of operation? How was he going to expand it?
The big boss never realizes Jack is wearing a hidden camera and secretly recording every word of their conversations.
He thought he had to lay of the land. He thought he could control these people. So for him, he never saw it coming. But we have to do the rest since it's on our home soil. That's the law.
So he's inside the hotel now?
Yeah.
We got two very large Liberian police officers who Fomba Sirleaf had given us to be the ones to make the arrest. And I mean very large guys. They were big, tall, broad, very intimidating. So they're with us. Of course, I'm thinking it's going to be like the United States. I want to go through the door, get him handcuffed, all that. So we make entry. They bang on the door.
Roux has been tricked so well into dropping his guard that he's even brought his girlfriend along for the trip.
Cindy Cayenne, Paul's girlfriend, answers the door. The cops go, "You're under arrest." The two cops go for Roux. So as the Liberians start to go, "You're under arrest," and they try to cuff him, Paul goes into immediate passive resistance. He doesn't fight, but he starts not moving, starts kind of fighting, but passively, not striking at anybody.
Jack has warned that Roux can completely wipe his computer's hard drive, destroying crucial evidence with a few taps of his keyboard.
I go and grab the computer to shut the computer off so that we can't lose anything, nobody's going to hit any buttons. Paul's this big guy, and you can't move him, he's like a rock. The Liberians are standing there. I'm getting ready to throw a punch and punch him, and then the next thing you hear is the Liberian police officer goes, "Sir, stop resisting or I'm going to shoot you." All is good in the world. Paul's under arrest, and Paul immediately starts to try and bribe the African cops.
Despite the shock of the sudden arrest, Paul Roux soon shows why he has survived so long as the big boss.
We brought him in to do all his booking. He said he could not leave.
Roux first tries to turn the fact that he was born in Africa into a bargaining chip.
And he says to them, "My African brother, what can we do to work this out?" And they're like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "No, we're African brothers here."
And he told the guy, I said, "Look, listen, if you can call me a lawyer to stall these DEA guys, I will make you a very rich man. Very rich, beyond your wildest dreams." I think the first thing he offered him was $300,000, then he pushed it up to $500,000, and then he told the guy to name his number.
This was another business deal. How do I get out of this? How do I manage this situation? At that time, at that point, it was a business decision. I need to figure out how to not go on that plane. And that's what his concern was.
When attempts to bribe his way out of trouble fail, Roux uses the only thing he has left, his sheer physical bulk.
Eventually, when we were taking him out, as all people, when reality sets upon you and that weight starts to bear down, and then you have that true moment of clarity, or when you call it an epiphany, he's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me." And he resisted. He couldn't believe it.
Now, he was scared in that he did not want to go with the Americans. He did not want to go to New York. That's what his fear was.
I mean, he fell on the ground and he said he's not going anywhere. I mean, this guy is like almost 400 pounds.
Well, that's where the fun began. The bull elephant decides he is not going. And again, he goes into the passive resistance. We can't get him cuffed. We can't get him shackled to transport him. So there's about 10 of us trying to do this. We ultimately get him shackled. We have to carry him down 3 flights of stairs.
How do you pick up a guy like that and put him in a vehicle?
And we finally get to the plane, and we get him on the plane. And we were like, thank God. And it was a complete relief to get him settled on that plane.
But after his short-lived tantrum, and even though he is now on a plane taking him back to face justice in the US, the big boss once again tries to take control.
He's not happy. But the interesting thing about Paul didn't take long to morph back into trying to control the situation. First thing I noticed was, now he's shackled. He's been carried down by shackles, and he doesn't have a bruise on him anywhere. Okay, not a bruise. He doesn't complain. Doesn't say, cuffs are hurting me, this is hurting me, that's hurting me. Nothing. Does the biographical portion, gets fingerprinted. Complete gentleman. Diet Coke, it's his drink, and the game is on again, and he's back in control.
After almost a decade of gun running, drug dealing and murder, Paul Roux has finally been caught, thanks to the audacious and exhausting sting operation.
So now at this time we've been up, 72 hours. We just wanted to kind of go to sleep. And he goes, okay, let's talk. And then the game is on again. The first thing he says to us is, well played, gentlemen, well played. And he goes, obviously, if you're looking at me, you're looking at much bigger things. We look at each other, Eric responds, no, Paul, you're kind of the prize. He goes, no, gentlemen. And we're like, what's bigger than you? He goes, nation states, gentlemen, nation states. And that's when he starts going into North Korea and Iran.
Less than an hour after being captured, Roux has already developed a new strategy to protect his interests. But can the big boss still escape justice? And what about his army of assassins?
I don't kill anyone unless I get paid.
The big boss has finally been captured. His career as a new kind of criminal for the 21st century seems to be over. But he still has a card or two left to play.
You never saw Paul get high or get low. He was kind of always steady. He was the chairman of the board. You never saw him rattle.
Roux is offering to reveal all about his connections with North Korea and Iran, nation-states and sworn enemies of America. But the DEA also know about other more personal crimes ordered by Roux, where his victims were not criminals, but innocent civilians in the Philippines. Roux's professional killers were still running free around Southeast Asia, unaware that their big boss has been arrested.
When you start talking about Western-trained mercenaries killing people, well, attorneys at Main Justice don't like that, okay? Ambassadors don't like that. The bureaucrats who sit at the top of our agency don't like that.
Just the first thing we got to do is get his hired killers. Some of them are American. We can't have them going in and out of the United States and killing people for Roux or for other people in his network or for some other network. We've just got to get them.
The DEA makes sure Roux's capture in Liberia doesn't hit the headlines. His gang assume he's still pulling strings from his secret base in Manila, and they continue to receive orders from the big boss as normal.
If you look at the emails that his mercenaries sent among themselves, they didn't know he was caught. This gave the DEA agents the opportunity to go after his mercenaries.
Paul's uniqueness of being able to not be seen and being able to run an entire organization from behind a computer and on a phone allowed for this operation to be done. That's what the unique aspect was. Nobody knew he was arrested.
The DEA now put together another, even more ambitious sting operation. This time to capture Roux's head of security, Joseph Hunter, and his gang of killers.
We need to move people around the globe without Hunter catching on that we can isolate each group and have them arrested.
The challenge is to convince Hunter that he is still being directed by Roux. The first stage of this sting is to trick the gang into meeting up at Hunter's house in Thailand to receive their latest orders from the big boss.
And the ruse was they would be guarding his Colombian cartel kingpin that Roux was making a deal with.
And we came up with the idea of a mercenary group protecting Colombian drug traffickers who Paul was now aligned with. The Triad Association to supply us the North Korean map, while the mercenaries protected everybody involved, and the facilitators assisting in moving the meth on our behalf. Then we have Hunter on the ground in Phuket. And then following that takedown, we have to arrest Stammer, Shackles, and Valkovich in Phuket, and then Lim and Peralta. So it was a lot of moving parts at one time.
At the end of the year, the mercenaries coalesced in Phuket. There were 5 of them there.
Before arrests can be made, the DEA and their Thai counterparts need to capture clear evidence of the assassins admitting their past crimes. Hunter and the others never realize that their new orders come from a man who is now in the hands of the DEA, and that their secret meetings are being recorded by the police.
You know, you see everything, you see James Bond in the movie, and you say, oh, I can do that, or you're going to do it now.
While the police listen, Hunter begins to boast about his past killings and extreme violence, all carried out on the orders of the big boss.
And then it was smuggling weapons, then it was buying weapons, then it was bonus work.
Bonus work is the hitman's code for killing for money.
But I used to do bonus work. We did it all. We hand grenaded, threw in hand grenades at people's houses. We assassinated people. What else we did? We smuggled gold. We smuggled weapons from Jakarta to the Philippines on the ship. We've done everything. One time I went to Sri Lanka to buy hand grenades. We have guys in Somalia buying weapons. You can't make it up. It's not even in a movie. This is real stuff.
Hunter finally confirms that LaRue personally ordered the murder of Kathy Lee.
I know he killed a real estate agent.
The plan is high risk, but the DEA always have a trump card up their sleeve, the big boss.
The key to understanding all this is that Paul LaRue had been running his organization from the 5th floor of the United States Courthouse in the Southern District of New York.
LaRue, he was now part of Team America, and they tasked him to help lure them to places where they could get him. This was a process that took about a year. He was a very good, seductive, magical lure. He set them all up. They were pretty shocked.
The DEA have chosen Phuket, Thailand, as the location where they'll grab Hunter and his team of killers. But there is one last potentially deadly obstacle to overcome.
The DEA agents realized we can't ask the Thai police to go hit a house with 5 trained military snipers. That's what they all were. They all had excellent training as snipers.
To arrest the killers, the DEA will need to work closely with Thailand's own elite law enforcement agents.
เพราะว่าตอนแรกนักข่าวเริ่มต้นนี่เขาบอกว่าตอนนี้ทาง SOD ได้จับกุมตัวพอเราดูขึ้นเป็นแบบเหมือนพ่อค้ารายใหญ่แล้วนะแล้วเขาบอกตอนนี้ทางพอฟังเราดูเขาให้ความร่วมมือกับเรา
ก็อยู่ที่กรุงเทพนะครับซึ่งหน่วยงานของพี่เนี่ยก็ทำงานร่วมกับ DA มาตลอดก็ได้รับข่าวจากคือตอนนั้นเราคนที่ถูกจับที่นู่นเรารู้ว่าชื่อละลู
Colonel Chokchai leads a special unit of highly trained police officers who style themselves the Black Monkeys. B, the undercover DEA agent, even poses as Joseph Hunter's driver and picks him up at the airport. It's time to give the green light. But when the Black Monkeys approach Hunter's home, there is at first no sign of LaRue's deadly head of security. The DEA make a frantic call to LaRue, who is in custody in the US 8,500 miles away.
Paul, calm as can be. Guys, he's probably with a girl. We're like, what? Is his motorcycle there? No. Probably on a motorcycle with a girl. We're like, what the are you talking? No, I'm serious, guys. Just relax. He'll be back. Just relax, guys. Right? That's Paul. Still controlling. Well, didn't it turn out the was right? Right? So we get everybody out of the area, have the guy set up on surveillance. We're sitting there. Here comes Hunter on a motorcycle with a girl on the back.
ก็ช่วงที่เรารู้ว่าฮันเตอร์ขี่มอเตอร์ไซค์ออกไปข้างนอกบ้านนะที่สนามกอล์ฟที่เราเจอภายหลังเนี่ยช่วงที่เขาขี่กลับมาเนี่ยเราทุกคนต่างรู้ว่าฮันเตอร์เป็นพวก specialist พวกการต่อสู้หรือใช้อุปกรณ์ต่างๆนี่ก็เลยใช้วิธีเอารถกระแทกเขา
Then Hunter got locked in.
One by one, LaRue's top team of killers and drug dealers begin to fall like 10 pins.
And then Gogol and Van Bockius got locked in. Later on, Shackles, Stammers, Lim, and Peralta. So that's when you could take the sigh of relief.
Simultaneous operations in Liberia and Estonia take down other key members of the gang.
Today we announce the arrest of Joseph Hunter, a man who served in the United States Army for nearly 20 years. The bone-chilling allegations in today's indictment read like they were ripped from the pages of a Tom Clancy novel. The 3 of those men are the ones who were charged in the murder-for-hire scheme. In addition to those 3,
the arrest of Hunter and the other killers also provides the breakthrough Zoldy Rivera has been waiting for. Hunter has been caught on tape talking about the 2 men he sent to kill Kathy Lee.
I said, as soon as she gets in the car, drive down the road. I said, drive down the road, maybe a quarter mile, half kilometer, turn around and shoot her. It's done. Nobody saw anything, right? Just kill her in the car. I said, take a blanket with you and wrap her up.
When the DEA arrest the 2 killers, Adam Samia and Carl Stillwell in North Carolina, they find an arsenal of weapons and some disturbing photographs taken on their trip to the Philippines.
On the camera, the investigators, the authorities were able to see a photograph. They wanted to pass it to LaRue or to Hunter as a proof that Lee was killed, so they can get their money.
There was just one name missing from the list of the accused. Even though the big boss had hired and directed these killers, he has never been charged with his key role in any of these crimes. Paul LaRue has openly confessed to an astonishing variety of crimes, from selling hundreds of millions of dollars of prescription drugs, to buying and selling weapons of war with Iran, shipping guns from Indonesia, and trafficking methamphetamine out of North Korea. He has even admitted to ordering or taking part in 7 murders. Yet Paul LaRue has only been charged with the lesser offences, and none of the murders he ordered in the Philippines.
For him to have been charged with murder in the United States, he would have had to conspire in the United States. He did not conspire in the United States. Catherine Lee wasn't a U.S. citizen. You can't simply just charge murder in the United States if there's no jurisdiction.
The detective who investigated the murder of Kathy Lee finds the decision not to extradite and prosecute Paul LaRue for his role in her death hard to accept.
If LaRue was arrested here, by the NBI here in Manila, definitely the NBI will file multiple cases of murder against him and against his men. And definitely because of the overwhelming pieces of evidence, LaRue will go straight to jail, including his men. And they will have a very lengthy sentence, about 30 to 40 years in the future.
LaRue's evidence has ensured that Hunter and Kathy Lee's killers will spend most of their lives in prison. But 7 years after his arrest, the big boss himself has yet to be sentenced.
Well, the first time I saw him and I looked at those eyes, I see Satan. And maybe in a figurative sense. I don't know that my religion is that strong that I think that there's a physical Satan. But if there is one, I see it in that man's face, and in his eyes particularly, and in his, you can see his heart there, and you can see it just burning to destroy.
The US prosecutors have asked that Paul LaRue be given a life sentence, but with the recommendation that he serves a minimum of just 10 years in prison.
I think the only justice Paul LaRue really should get is never to be out again, because I think he is a true danger. But we would have never gotten guys who pulled triggers. We would have never gotten the links into North Koreans. We would have never known about E4M and TrueCrypt the way we do. Sometimes you have to make a deal with the devil.